Charles Timothy Mugarazaro. Mamua tulipe ushuru kila mahali.
No, wewe ndio umechagua hiyo mambo ya ushuru.
Yeah, but that, yeah.
He called me Lazaro. Essentially, he has called me a name. He's calling me names.
He's secret.
Everything is secret, Lazaro. Everything here is just saying that you go and do what. That's taxation.
But the person you actually wanted to refer me, you want to compare me with not Lazaro, was the other short guy who climbed the tree.
Who's his name? Zakayo.
Zakar.
Yeah, that one.
Zacchaeus.
Yes, that one. Because he's the one who dealt with money. Yes, and he's a tax collector. So him, sorry, you're not supposed to say short. The gentleman who is vertically challenged. Yes.
Brief, sorry.
You don't become abusive.
How do we know he was a gentleman? Just call him that person.
Gentleman meaning a person. Here,
human.
Yes.
They, that are a tax collector. Our guest is in the studio, Francis Kuria Kimani, MP for Molo constituency. And he is the chairman of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly. He is the man who oversees Zakayo. He's one. The one who collects our tax. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning. Great to be here. Asante.
It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Mchelewa kidogo, I was with your sister the other side, with your brother, Vibes FM. But tuko hapa.
Very good.
And good morning from Molo. Nimetoka Molo jana. We're still worried about the issue of climate change is serious. You know, for so many years I have lived or grown up in Molo. We've never had more than 3 months without rain. And it's
really never had more than 3 months without rain.
We've never seen that. Wow. We've always had our place has always been green.
Precipitation.
But you know, what's the forest cover like in Molo? Because I also grew up in the Rift Valley. And one of the things about the constitution come from that the forest cover was serious.
Oh, yes.
And it has diminished and
over time,
diminished and diminished.
Yes, and then we also got the issue of a forest wrong, because what we did a few years ago, we came up with that moratorium for stopping harvesting of trees, calling sawmilling. Ideally, it was supposed to protect our tree cover. But you know what it did? It protected the trees in the forest, but it completely destroyed the trees around our homes. Because when we still needed furniture to do our doors, we still needed wood to do our doors, to do our furniture. So what we ended up doing is cutting all the trees around our homesteads. So napata, like there's a time I had a chopper ride from Londiani to Nairobi, and the entire stretch, nothing. Even one tree.
Trees.
Akuna. So I think we have brought this to ourselves, and if we are to protect our next generation, kwanza kareni kakikam, let's plant trees.
We plant trees.
Let's plant trees.
So it's been how many months now without a drop of rain?
The last time we had rain was around November, the whole of December. We've never had a Christmas without rain.
Without rain in Molo?
It didn't rain the whole of December. It didn't rain in January. We are almost end of February. It hasn't rained. Unless Marine says yesterday because netoka jana. I think it's, my friend, it's...
If it's any comfort, I'm sure it isn't, if you go to Magarini in Kilifi County, over 3 years, not a drop.
Maybe in Yimezo,
It's not used to this at all.
You're not used to this. We don't know what to do, you know. Right now, we usually have the first harvest of cabbages and beans around this time. And now tunatoa zingine tunarudisha zingine kwa shamba.
The ones that will be growing over December.
Yes, the ones that now we planted early December, and we will be harvesting them now. Nothing is bad.
It's a dire situation.
Yes, and it's unfortunately, if I really pray that God gives us rains, because it doesn't, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad.
What are our alternatives if we don't get rainfall again this year, sufficient to grow food?
Aki, the one is too short to say what the alternative is. I'm really praying that we get rain. That's the only way. But in the long term, there are plans. We're talking about the incomplete dams. For example, around Molo, we have the the infamous Itare
Itare
Dam.
Dam.
So if that's done now, we're not going to rely on rain-fed agriculture. On the other side of Nakuru County, there's a dam coming up. Forget the name, around Nyandarua, that's supposed to feed Naivasha and Gilgil in that Kinangop area, and so that the plan to have a dam per county, and if it's done, then have all this water harvesting could go a long way. But I'm also hoping that our research, our agricultural research institutions are sensitive to this issue of climate change, and therefore the seeds that they're going to produce are going to be resilient to the harsh climatic conditions that we have now. Because if we continue planting the trees, if for example plant seeds, the same seeds that we planted last year, this year, we will have a bad harvest. So I hope that our research institutions are going to be sensitive to this and continuously improve on the kind of seeds that we give to our farmers, so that hopefully we're going to maximize on the little rains that we're going to get.
I'm sure our researchers at Calro have been doing a lot of work on this kind of seed varieties, that would withstand short rains only and all. The question we should be asking is the uptake. Who consumes the research that comes out of Calro?
One of the unfortunate things, and I'll say unfortunate, is that farming in this country is not taken seriously. That the people that do farming do it for subsistence, and they do not have, most of them don't have the drive, and the knowledge they need to do that. And you and I, who have some knowledge, or who would be consumers of that research, don't care about farming. But I think one of the good things that COVID did, irudisha watu ushago. So we have a lot of people that when COVID came and then jobs closed and the office closed, they went back to the village, and now you see a lot of people trying to do farming and try to do a few varieties. And I will even speak on behalf of myself. I tried strawberries in Molo, and they did very well. So now I had my first harvest of strawberries, and it's amazing. I never thought we'll grow strawberries in Molo. And so if we are going to have more people do farming and attempt or try different varieties of things, then we might do a turnaround. But if we continue planting the usual maize, the usual beans, the usual potatoes, the usual cabbages, same way over and over again, we're not likely to make headways. But hopefully, we're going to convince, especially now, the middle class to.
Why do they need convincing? Why has farming been unattractive?
It's a way how we grew up. When I was little, a young man, you dressed up, you want to go to church. Then my grandfather would go and check and realize that there was not enough dhara for the cows. And then usha piga look and tells you, where do you think you're going? There is not enough napier grass for the cows. So go get cows. So go get napier grass. And now for me to move your Sunday school clothes to go Zako's home to go get napier grass. My friend, for a very long time I never wanted to be a farmer, and I can tell you in my entire family, it's only myself and my uncle who has attempted farming, or who do farming. I told my mom I would buy her a cow, and then she told me she would kill it. Farming,
it's a pain.
Yeah, farming has traumas.
Exactly.
Because it's really about even child labor,
That's it. Because you are not seeing the benefit of everything else. Combined, you're just seeing the labor and you're not seeing the returns from it. That's what there are many people who argue that if indeed agriculture was actually as economically viable as it should be, then it would be attracting people. People have grown up. Yes, you have seen the kind of toiling that you did, and still your parents were struggling to find the money to pay school fees for you, and you can't just look at it and say, so this thing is not working. I don't want to end up in the same kind of lifestyle where I will also be struggling to raise enough money to pay school fees for my children. So I get away from this.
Yeah.
And especially if I see Kuria Kimani has gone to Nairobi and he has come back and he's driving a big car and he's taking his children to private schools, I want to go and do what Kuria Kimani is doing in Nairobi.
Yeah, true. But to be also fair, if you look at it, traditionally we had large families. Okay, my grandfather had 12 kids. and he fed us mostly on that farming. You tell me any economic activity that will feed 12 children and take them to school. One is difficult. So in as much as yes, it didn't pay as much as we expected. That's the only thing we relied on.
But that's what in the heart of the matter, because how do you balance this? Because part of the problem that we're now facing are people who are faced with hunger. Yet there is food. The focus on ensuring that people can feed themselves is important.
That's true.
Now, then comes the balance, where now your strawberries come in. Now, you can feed yourself, yes. If we can determine that, then you then look to ways and means of ensuring that you can also make a little money on the side.
That's true. But let me complicate it a little further.
Please.
And talk about food prices. You're complaining because the cost of maize flour has gone up. Agreed. But when the cost of maize flour goes up, so does the cost of maize. So if you want to reduce the cost of maize flour, then we'll have to reduce the cost of maize. So you have to reduce the buying price at which you buy that maize from the farmers.
Yeah.
And also you need to reduce the cost of producing that maize.
So yes, so that's why in our wisdom now we are subsidizing the production of that maize, and hopefully so that we have a return for both the farmer. So because we have reduced the cost of production for the farmer by reducing the cost of fertilizer, so if you buy that maize from the farmer at a low price, then the farmer will still find that farming business economically viable, and at the same time reduce the cost of maize flour. And like what was happening earlier, because now what we're doing earlier was subsidizing consumption, and subsidizing consumption by giving this money to millers. And I questioned this. I asked, if you're giving these billions to millers, first of all, you expect millers to be open enough and tell you, I have this amount of maize in the silos. And then, fine, even if you accurately valued the value of maize in the silos, then how much maize flour is in distribution? And then even if you miraculously value how much value that maize flour was in distribution, then you have again to value how much is in the wholesale center, and value how much is a retail shop, so that subsequently you can reduce all that price so that the value can be transferred to the consumer. That's why, by the way, we during the supplementary treasury realized that out of the 4.7 billion that was paid, 4.8 billion that was paid to millers, only 1.7 billion actually went to the real millers. And so hopefully...
So who did they pay the other money? Who was paying? Is it the same treasury?
Same treasury. On 5th of August, when we were thinking about elections, the same treasury paid 6.142 billion to buy out some shareholder from Delco.
Yep.
Using Article 223. And they didn't even bother to bring it to Parliament for...
It was national security.
What?
Sorry, excuse me. You said, I'm sorry, 4.8 billion shillings paid to the millers, 1.7 actually went to the millers. Where did 3.1 billion shillings go?
That's what we were looking into the matter. That's what part of my hearings with Treasury next week is going to be. And the theft that went on this country, especially around election time,
and
is
out
crazy.
of the money, that money that went to the millers, how much maize actually ended up in the market, in the shelves at 100 bob?
That's all the information we're trying to gather.
Maize flour.
That's why the cost of maize didn't go down. Because that money actually didn't... And even, that's why I said, the whole thing was ill-informed. And I've tried to clarify, even if the money would go to the millers, how would they transfer it to the consumer? It's almost, it's a logistical nightmare. It is impossible.
You know, Mheshimiwa, there's something I don't understand here.
Tell me.
I thought that this government has a system. You see, it's called IFMIS.
It is.
So that when Treasury pays, is it not supposed to go to where it was supposed to go? Or did they just say they had paid, but in actual fact, they didn't actually pay? There's a reason I'm asking this question. Because if indeed Treasury can say they have paid for something and yet they haven't, then the problem we have here is big. Because I'll take that argument and say, okay, so when they say they're repaying our debts, are we sure those debts are being repaid?
Hey, God.
When I come back here after 2 weeks, I'll have a proper answer for you.
So this is a problem, Mheshimiwa, because we're talking about a pending bills situation here.
Oh, yes.
Okay? Here we are talking about millers and the money that they should have received. After all this whole hoo-ha about millers not being paid, I don't know, coming from old stock and new stock, this thing, it was supposed to have sorted out that problem. And then here we are, pending bills in the billions per county. I don't even know what the national figure is of money that is owed at county level. And I've got to ask, national and county governments ending up with pending bills, how on earth do we get there? Some counties owing in the hundreds of billions. Why? And then how can we be sure it's actually being paid?
It's a very sad situation. First of all, it is a system problem, and then you add a political influence, and then you doubled up with a transitional problem. First of all, there is some thinking among some government officials that our country gets wound up every 5 years. It's like 5 years, especially during election time, we wind up the country, and then we take it back after elections. And that's why expenditures just before election, and unfortunately this time around during elections, goes to mostly wastage. And then when the new government comes in, and for this I'm referring to counties. So the first thing they do is they will say they are auditing the pending bills. So auditing means that, who are these guys who are being paid? Are they supporters? Or were they supporting me? Were they supporting my opponent?
Yeah.
And so now with the intention of punishing those particular contractors or those particular suppliers that were not politically inclined to the current governors. And that is the reality.
Yep.
But in terms of now being a system issue, we start the budget process around the first quarter, that is around September. We do the policy papers. Around this time, we are like from this week, my committee is processing what's called the budget policy statement. Then after that, we process the budget estimates. Now that is the expenditure side. Around April, that's when we start doing the finance bill. The finance bill is supposed now to raise revenue to finance the budget that already approved. Yeah. So first of all, we have already approved the budget and we need to raise money for it. So, and raising money is coming. So it's more of like sharing the cake before we bake it, technically. But then that doesn't end. After now passing the finance bill and passing the budget, the MDAs and the ministries are waiting to see, has our budget been approved? Then once the budget is approved, they do their procurement plans. They say now this is what and the list of activities are going to be the list of activities that you're going to do for this particular financial year. Most of them go ahead to procure for those products and services. But this during all this time, they haven't received the money. Yep. They don't have money in their account.
They just know it's been approved.
But it has been approved. Yeah. And they don't have money because the money has not been disbursed to them, and because we have not collected the taxes. We have not raised the taxes so that we can put it in the bank account, so I can put it in treasury, so that treasury then can disburse. So by the time now we're getting to our accounting system again, we're using the cash accounting system. So cash accounting system means we expense once we pay, and we in terms of income, we recognize the income when we receive it. So towards now the end of the financial year, we realize that we expected 10 billion shillings, Treasury sent us 6. Yeah. But remember, we had expensed the 4.
The entire 10 billion.
So what we have been doing technically is funding the government through private people's money. Yep. In fact, I was looking at the current debt ceiling. The current debt is estimated at around 9.1 trillion shillings against a ceiling set by Parliament at 10 trillion. But our pending bills is around 900 billion. So actually, if you would have pending bills...
And this is, by pending bills here, we just mean contractors who have...
In fact, that's even national government pending bills. If you added the one for counties, my friend, we have actually surpassed our debt ceiling. That's why, and the good thing is the money from my committee, we are looking at phasing out from the current cash accounting system that we currently use as a government to accrual system. Because as a result now, the statements that are sent for approval or that are sent to Parliament, the issue of pending bills just comes in as like a note. It's not part of the financial statements. And perhaps that's why even despite the law that a pending bill should be the first charge in the following year's budget, then it's not, because people come up with all the excuses around that. And perhaps the government needs to come up with, say, a bond, for example, and just pay off the pending bills and now start from scratch. And then we start living within our means. We only spend what we can raise.
What we have raised. Then also we need to budget with what we raised last year.
Oh, yes.
If last year we raised 2 trillion shillings, the next year's financial budget should just be 2 trillion shillings. Why are you budgeting 3 trillion shillings when you know your capacity is just 1 trillion?
There you're wrong.
We'll
our
talk about
capacity
it.
is much bigger.
Let's talk about it. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. The Honorable Kuria Kimani is the MP for Molo constituency and the chairman of the National Assembly's Finance and National Committee Assembly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Kimani, the MP for Molo, chairman of Finance Committee of the National Assembly. So you've explained to us just briefly and quickly how we end up with these bills. Because people receive an approval of their budgets, people start expending that, but the money comes later. We get to the end of the financial year, the money that was supposed to have come has not come. So some of the people who had already been contracted end up not getting paid. And then the next financial year begins, and instead of us starting with the previous, we move on like nothing happened. And the solution to this, you're saying, is if we just change our accounting system.
Yes, that's not going to be the only solution, but it's part of it. Because we need to recognize our debts in the statements. So really we have to change the way we do our accounting system. And our neighbors, Tanzania, have started. Some of the best developed countries like Canada, Australia actually do accrue accounting system. And it will also help us achieve a lot more, including, for example, valuation of our assets. Like, what's the value of our roads? We have the value, we have the cost of how much you spend on a road, but what is the value of it? What is the value of our biological assets? Biological assets would be like our elephants, our lions, we need to take stock of what we have as a country and put it in the books as whether it's assets or whether it's liabilities. And that's why some even economies have actually reasoned, maybe we don't even know how much debt we owe.
So why is that important, this issue of
valuation
of our assets and valuing? Why is it important?
When our CSs, for example, were being interviewed for their positions, one of the questions was, what's your value? And I think
what's your net worth?
Well, it's net worth, yes. Even Mr. Muga, I think every year we call ourselves into a meeting and ask ourselves, what is your net worth? So as a country, really, if we are serious as a country, then we should also know what is our net worth.
What is the benefit of having that knowledge?
For example, the damages, for example, we cause on our assets, for example, on our road. If we know how much that road is worth, and you, for example, damage it, or a railway, and then you damage it, then you should be charged for the damage that you did, and not just a blanket fine. Because even now, as it's existing law, if you damage any of the government assets, what you get is, there's a clause that says, we call them economic crimes, is that you get a fine, I think 3 years in prison or something, and a particular blanket fine. Because there is no attachment for the value of that particular asset. So, and it's just that's one of the benefits. But most importantly, is really capturing our pending bills in our statements.
Sure, I hear you that. But talking about value, I'll give you an example in terms of pending bills. Last week, unfortunately, people had to start thinking about laying a woman to rest, right?
I missed that. Sorry.
You did? Last week, people had to lay a woman to rest because the county, Nyandarua specifically, had not paid her for money that, rather for a job that she did for the county in some rehabilitation and construction of roads. They had not paid her.
Yes.
She went into a depression. The auctioneers were sent to her. She had to ask, now let's bring value into this thing. We can talk about budgets, we can talk about numbers, we can talk about accounting systems, we can talk about etc. But now we're talking about the very value of human life is what we're talking about now. That people then have gone to the bank. They've taken loans to be able to do work for county.
The loans have accrued interest.
The loans have accrued interest. Auctioneers have been sent to the homes of many a man and woman to take their property because counties across the country have not paid them. For me, that is the value.
Oh, yes.
That's the value. We're talking about life. Now, what's it going to take for some of these things now to work together? How many more shoshos have to die? How many more shoshos have to get into depression? Many people have gone unreported. And that is what we're talking about. We're talking about the effect of counties not sorting out pending bills. That's the effect. People die.
You know, you couldn't have put it any better. And unfortunately, we've left this decision to the governor, for example. And the governor decides which bills are a priority and which is not. At the national level, we've left the accounting officer decide which bills to be paid and which ones shouldn't pay. And I've given you, for example, a reference of around 9.42 billion shillings was paid on the 5th of August to buy off some shareholder at Telcom. Was it urgent? No. Did it follow law? No. Were there pending bills that were more urgent? Certainly, yes. So if we take out human intervention and take out human decision, or I would call even political decision, on which bills and which should be paid, is when these particular bills actually reflect on every statement. And therefore, and because the approvals for budgets for the following year are actually based on the audited accounts of the previous year. Now, that record of the pending bills in order of their aging history will be part of the basis in which these governors and these PSs and accounting officers will have their budget for the following year approved. But as we speak, that record of that pending bill is like a note. Is one of the financial notes that's written after the statement. But like all of us, when we get our pay slips, for example, if you have a mortgage, it will show that this is how much you owe, and this is how much balance is, and this is how much months you're left to pay. Including if you have your SACCO saving, whatever it is, we get that. So we need this in the statements. And so when the county assemblies, or when the public accounts committees of county assemblies are looking at the financial statements of their counties, so that they table them to the assembly, so that they can be used as a basis for the approval of the budgets for the following year, then that history of that pending bill is here. That way, it's not somebody who decides whether it is your friend or your relative or whoever it is and which one to prioritize or not. Because if we do not, we might get a situation in this country where nobody is going to be willing to supply government products or services. And government will not work.
You know, if it starts from the point of a certain project was discussed, was inserted into the county programs, right? And then it goes into the county budget, okay? So if it's in the county annual plan, it goes into the county budget. This budget is approved, and the budget has therefore certain limits. This is how much you are going to spend this month or this year, and this is where it's going to be. It's appropriated per. How do we end up with that bill being called a pending bill? It was budgeted for, unless we are saying that we budget for 10 billion shillings, but the county never receives 10 billion shillings. And then the question would be, so why does the county not receive the 10 billion shillings it was budgeted, it was supposed to receive? So
first of all, counties and even national government at times have inflated their expected income. Okay? Because the approval of the budget is based on
your capacity to fund it.
The capacity to fund it. And of course, expenditures are easier. They are sweeter. They have political benefits. They actually even have economical benefits. Because they're talking about even entrepreneurs there. Yeah, they're talking about also the needs of Kenyans. You know, Kenyans want roads done. They want markets done. They want that water project. And if you don't put it in that budget, some of the MCAs will tell you, if you don't put projects for my ward, then we're not going to approve your budget.
Yeah.
So, and they only been out to justify why a county has, say, a budget of 1 billion shillings, and they only receive from equitable share around 600 million, is by them then showing that they can raise
the 400
million. Sometimes knowing very well they can't. Okay? And so that's why now, even if we would receive the 600 million from equitable share from the national government, they still will not raise the 400 million. And then also, counties have also become very, I don't know, it's not creative, it is selfish in the way that they raise their own source revenue. Why? Paying taxes is painful. Asking for taxes is painful, especially when you are a politician. When your re-election is based on how well you treat your electorates. So what governors will do is that I think Senate passed a law against that, I think sometime. But what we would see at the end of every year is, for example, 50% waiver on property rates. So you're saying that we have forgiven your obligation of paying property rates by 50% because it's politically correct to do so. But now once we do not collect that property rates from you, and you have promised you're going to do a borehole, you're going to do that water project, it means that you'll not be able to finance it. And again, that's how we end up with a pending bill.
Yeah.
There's a time, I probably said this the last time I was here, when in Public Accounts Committee in the last Parliament, we went to audit the use of this leasing of medical equipment. And I remember we went to, I think it was a county of CI. And then there is this ICU, very wonderful facilities, the CT scans. It's not CTU. it is a
the other scan.
Not the scan.
And we asked, why are they not being utilized? And the government told us it's because the generator is broken down. And I asked him, why is the generator broken down? It's because you have not received money from the national government. Then, like, what you mean? You have not repaired the generator because you're waiting for national funds to come from the national government. You know, here we cannot collect tax. You don't collect anything here because unless now we ask these mama bogas to give us 20 shillings for Kipanda. And you know, being a politician becomes a difficult thing to ask. Then like, the money that you're waiting for from national government is VAT on food.
Yeah.
Is what guys are paying from their small salary as payee. Is what companies are paying from their little corporate tax. So also if you have to be serious about avoiding these pending bills is by making sure counties get to collect revenues.
Their own source revenue.
Their own source revenues. And let them be creative from their sector. You know, I don't want to mention his name, but one of the governors in the last election went to and told the markets that they should not be paying their daily rates. Then, if you don't collect that fees from the market, how would you maintain that market?
How would you maintain the market?
How will you maintain the bathrooms in that toilet? And then he went and told even these matatus that you no longer be required to pay this amount of money to use the stage because we want to be politically correct. And this is where this government is saying, fine, we can do without being politically correct, but let everyone pay the rightful.
We must be responsible.
Yeah. And we are also promising that we ensure prudent use of that resources.
Now, do you think this process of getting towards June every year should be reversed? So we start with the budget policies. Let's look at where, at the stage it comes to Parliament. Forget the conversations before in September, October, November. The budget policy statement comes, the budget estimates come, Parliament approves the budget for the next financial year, and then now Parliament is left to approve how the government is going to finance that budget with the finance bill.
Yes,
If you think about how we operate, you start with knowing how much your income is going to be, and then you budget around your income. It sounds here like the government budgets around some figure it places in the air and then starts struggling on how it's going to raise the money to finance it. Should we reverse this? Start by approving the finance bill before we go into the budget estimates?
We could actually do that. What you're suggesting could be politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
But then we could end up with the same thing you've been doing over the years. We'll approve the finance bill and then overstate or become overambitious or on what we purport to raise because you are targeting the expenditure side. So the dates don't have to change. However, the intention of not just passing those taxes for the sake of approval by Parliament, for the sake of being of adhering to the PFM Act, of adhering to the Constitution. But if we got honest and ask ourselves, how much realistically can we raise from this sector? And not just that, involving that sector, those stakeholders, and saying, if you expect to raise this money, say, from say media, from advertising, is that let us get those sectors, let's get those players to the table. Then after that, once now we pass that into law and we agree that these are the rates, then let there be uniformity
in compliance.
Let there be compliance, because once you actually involve these people, and we're going to agree. We agreed that this is going to be the rate, and you said if we give you this rate, then you raise this much. Then why are we not getting this amount of money? But the reason why we have also failed there is because when you see when you see this is Standard Group, when you see National Media Group got exemptions and you did not get, come on, you'll not be motivated to pay your rightful share.
Yeah.
But if we make it an equal playing field, where Royal Media pays their correct revenue, their correct share of taxes, we have Nation Media Group paying their correct share of tax, we have Standard Group then will happily pay their rightful share of tax. I have said before, you and I are salaried. Our main tax is pay, and it's deducted from source. And if we give you your pay and told you take it to KRA,
I'll take.
Are you sure?
The question is when.
You will take. The question is when. So this issue of making it a discussion about whether you pay tax or not, we should end, and will end. And that is the only way to make sure it's not an animal farm. And I'll give an example before City you interject. Last year, Umoja Expressway, the guys running the expressway, they got a tax exemption of 9.8 billion shillings.
Why?
Just.
They're coming in, it's the beginning. It's just...
So what? This is VAT.
Nice.
Because they are trying to try this product. The uptake by Kenyans is encouraging them to use the expressway. So as a result,
encouraging Kenyans to use the expressway.
Yes. So as a result,
by giving the people who are running it a tax exemption, how does that relate to us?
And remember,
they've put in all this money and time.
Yeah, but are they giving us a discount for using the expressway?
Exactly.
They've been given a tax exemption.
Unfortunately, even the patch that you see on KRA is because of that. That's what was happening. Someone just approved it. And see, the problem with VAT...
To encourage a PPP person to come and put in their 880 billion shillings here. No, incentive here and there.
It's also a loan. It's guaranteed by the government of Kenya.
Yeah, but...
And you know, but come on, how does... No, you... It's almost annoying to think about it. You know, this VAT, first of all, has been paid. Because we agree that the cost of this pen is 100 shillings. Mm-hmm. Okay? But then we add 16% VAT to it. Yep. So you buy it
at 116.
At 116.
Yeah.
So I am just an agent.
You're just passing that 16 bob.
Yes, 100 shillings belongs to me. 600 shillings belongs to 16 shillings. Sorry, 16 shillings belongs to KRA. Yeah. So you cannot exempt the 16 shillings.
You know, we're coming to the end of this thing, and I have to ask this question: are we saying that this government is not going to give tax exemptions?
Yes.
And you're sure?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. We are saying everybody must pay their rightful share of tax. It's not going to be an animal farm anymore.
Okay. Then pending bills will be paid.
And that way, hopefully, we are going to be able to raise enough money
revenue to fund this budget.
If you and I were given a chance to negotiate our pay, we wouldn't pay. Yes. If the person buying bottled water that has 16% VAT, they wouldn't, or excise on your alcohol. If you were told to negotiate whether you'll pay or not, you wouldn't pay. So the same way, we're not negotiating with every Kenyan, with every employee. We're not going to negotiate on exemptions.
Mheshimiwa, thank you. Come again soon. Kuria Kimani, Chairman, National Assembly's Committee on Finance and National Planning.